Hello, and welcome to my HPQ video presentation. Today I'll be answering the question of my aim, which was, is it possible to create a human out of stem cells? These are some of the questions that I had at the start of the project. So, what are stem cells? Stem cells are cells that have the potential to grow and develop into any cell. And there are three types of cells. There are embryonic stem cells, induced pluripotent stem cells, and somatic stem cells, which we will look into now. Before I get started, the blastocyst, which will be mentioned in the embryonic stem cells characteristics, is the result of the 3 to 5 day old embryo. It is a ball of cells. Embryonic stem cells can develop into any cell, and they're potentially unethical and controversial since you're using cells from an embryo. Induced pluripotent stem cells are found in the body and they have been reprogrammed. They can make any cell and they're not controversial or unethical. Somatic stem cells are derived from organs and bone marrow. Unlike embryonic stem cells, somatic cells are used to maintain and repair an organ, and they can only develop into a limited type of cells. So let's look at induced pluripotent stem cells. How are they made? Firstly, you take any somatic stem cell, in this case a skin cell, and put it into a petri dish. And step 2, you reprogram the DNA of the cell. This gives it pluripotent stem cell characteristics. Finally, step 3, you have an induced pluripotent stem cell, or iPSC for short. You can now culture induced pluripotent stem cells in a lab. These conditions have to be met perfectly so they replicate the human body. You can now use them to make different types of organs and other structures inside the body. For example, you could take a heart. You can use heart stem cells to make a heart. Likewise, you can do the same for a liver. You just take a liver cell and then make a liver. So what does making a human out of stem cells involve, and how is it done? Let's take the heart for example. First, you would have to obtain a heart from a human donor and rinse it in chemicals which strip it of cells. So far, we can't make a human completely from scratch, as we need donor organs. This would make the organ a ghost heart, which is essentially the bare bones of an organ. It has no cells, so you'd inject a stem cell into it. This is the method used when treating organ transplant patients. So, what next? You take every single organ in the body and replicate it using ghost organs and stem cells. Once you've done this, you need to put them together as you would find them in a human. This could prove one of the most difficult parts of the experiment, and many failures could happen here. Is it ethical? There's many different arguments for yes and for no, and I'll explore some. Firstly, stem cells help families who cannot conceive. It could also serve as a breakthrough in medical research and could lead on to other discoveries. However, it forces artificial humans to be an experiment. This goes against human rights and also tampers with Mother Nature. Could it be classified as abuse? Also, could we be labelled as possible murderers? So, what's the safety like? Let's take statistics of over 38,000 stem cell transplant recipients for a disease called AML, acute myeloid leukemia. Acute myeloid leukemia is a cancer of the blood. So, 100 days post-transplant, the figure of surviving went up from 85% to 94% using stem cells. However, in a year, this went from 48% to 63%, a huge improvement. However, an artificial human could have possible deformities and problems as it's being developed outside the body entirely, as opposed to transplanting single organs into natural bodies. Next, what are the advantages and disadvantages of creating a human out of stem cells? Firstly, it can be used to provide an alternative means of having a child. Secondly, it could serve as advancement in medicine and technology. And finally, it could be used to extend life. However, more research is needed to be able to tell whether a body could develop. Artificial humans could be killed during the process. What about playing the role of God? There's also population issues. There could also be abuse towards the artificial humans, such as harassment, discrimination. They could be seen as a minority. And also, creating a human out of stem cells is pretty unnatural. It disrupts Mother Nature's cycle of life, and it could also take many experiments before being successful. Essentially, we are playing with life. In conclusion, although it would be possible to create humans out of stem cells, the advantages are outweighed by the disadvantages. This would undoubtedly cause issues in terms of politics, religion, society, morality and ethics, not to mention science. The chances of the experiment not being successful would most likely be high due to human error, unexpected issues and even using stem cells altogether. In my opinion, the use of stem cells would benefit those who already exist, through organ transplants and fighting diseases such as cancer. We should be using stem cells to prolong life, not to create new life. We should work with what we've got now and help prevent diseases using stem cells. For example, in the future, we could make AML treatments more accessible. Thank you for listening to my presentation.